Thanks for staying with us. Now, during his State of the City address, Ekurhuleni Mayor Nkosindiphile Xhakaza said the city must move with speed to address the billing crisis. The city also said it remains concerned about the state of its finances, especially because it seemed to not be collecting enough revenue. While unpacking his budget, Ekurhuleni Finance MMC Jongizizwe Dlabathi said critical areas were also being prioritised in order to enhance the quality of life for all residents. Let's now speak to Ekurhuleni Finance MMC Jongizizwe Dlabathi, who's joining us. MMC, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I mean, when you look back, for example, at the State of the City address in April, there was an admission that the billing crisis needed urgent attention and there was a need to implement smart and credible billing. Where are you with that?
Firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I must indicate that we are presiding over the finances that are constrained. And exactly the executive mayor has actually mandated myself to turn around the situation. The reality is that we did not have the contractors put in place to ensure that there is accurate meter reading, and that borders on our ability to bill our customers in a manner that is accurate, acceptable to the extent that they are able to pay for that which they found to be acceptable. We have then met with the revenue division to understand what are the challenges. And the challenges really is with regards to the location of the meter reading management. And we have now identified a problem such a way that we are tabling a report to the executive mayor to fully take the function of meter reading, meter billing as finance, because currently that function is facilitated by the ICT. And we find that to be probably a weakness in the system purely because it is finance that uses the data to bill. Secondly, we are going on an aggressive drive, not only to foster the culture of payment, but to encourage community members who, as and when they receive bills that are reflective of interim billing, to come closer to our customer care center, finance department in particular, with their actual reading so that there can be a reconciliation. Really, that will be a mammoth task, but it is something that we are encouraging so that whilst we deal with the operational weaknesses, but at least we create a platform for our account holders to come forth, they bring the actual reconcile and that they are charged accordingly. The third area, we are going to consider the EPWP program where we massify the deployment of warm bodies into our different households to assist the process of getting the meters, submit them into the system so that they can be accurate billing. So these are just some of the minimum things we are going to implement with immediate effect to improve the use of interim billing. And the idea really is to progressively minimize it until such time we get our system right.
You have a mammoth task ahead of you, especially when you talk about turning around, you know, the issue of finances, especially you are grappling with revenue collection, which is not unique to your municipality. How are you working around this particular challenge? And I ask this because in some of the households, for example, there are those who say they cannot afford to pay for the services, but the city still needs to then be able to function.
Certainly, our very first priority is the recovery and the rebuilding of a strong financial base. And that is really anchored on resuscitating and fostering the culture of payment. There is a lot of money that is still residing within our household as well as business, purely because we did not institute early systems of revenue collection. We have started a drive, Sispongi, of communicating the importance of our household paying for services, meaning that everyone who can service their current account must pay for their accounts. Secondly, those that are having constraints in their disposable income, they should not escape making a contribution into the system to the extent to which they can. So that is the very first message we are inculcating, and I have started a drive to communicate that message as a political leader. Secondly, we are considering giving some incentive. An example, we are intending to waive the interest from the debtor and allow our account holders to pay the capital or rather the principal amount. And those that are prepared to even give us 50 or 30% of the down payment of the principal amount, we are even considering to give additional interest. We have a 26 billion debtor that is sitting in our book. And obviously, part of it is purely because of our lack of instituting early warning systems so that we consistently remind people to pay for their services. But of course, we do have other initiatives that says over and above the normal collection, understanding the economic outlook, unemployment, and the constraint of disposable income, without necessarily saying people must not pay. Everyone must make a contribution. We are going into a private sector to engage with them in that we release some of our strategic assets, which they can invest on. It could be either that we dispose some of them, they develop them and pay us for property rates and other trade services. These are just some of the initiatives we are putting in place.
And it does sound like there is a plan there, but what happens, for example, if you don't win on the residents front? And yes, of course, the private sector may be able to come in, but we do see now the city of Johannesburg, for example, approving that loan, a 2.5 billion rand loan. Could that even be an option for the city of Ekurhuleni in order to try and possibly stay afloat? Could you look at loans?
No. That should not be an immediate option because you are simply going to borrow. And when you borrow at an interest of which you must service. And the fundamental question is that with what are you going to service that interest? And that is why we must give this program of intensifying the culture of payment. In addition to our message, Sisbongi, we of course do have other levers and means to foster payment. What do I mean? There is credit control policy where we are literally going to go to industries and households that are deliberately intending not to make a contribution. Switch off electricity where it is possible, switch off water, in particular to industries that are proving to be able to pay but have not been paying.
All right, MMC, it sounds like there's a plan in place. Let's catch up then to see how your plan is going and if you are able to generate revenue, particularly on the side of residents as well, and also that, the private sector approach that you are taking there. But thank you so much for giving us a sense of some of these strategies you're looking at employing now, especially when it comes to the challenges of revenue collection in some of the municipalities. That was Ekurhuleni Finance MMC, Jongizizwe Dlabathi.